They can't believe it. Suddenly, the wind dies, the mists come in, and it all goes tits. Okay, this is very on brand for me. Today, I am taking you on a tour of Coleridge country. We are going to trace the journey, kind of, from where Coleridge lived, Coleridge being one of the founding poets of the Romantic era in the 1700s. We're going to trace from where he lived to where he allegedly had his inspiration for one of the most famous epic poems of all time, the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. We're going to trace his journey from there, which was a walk, to the town of Watchet, which is a harbour town where there's a statue of the Ancient Mariner. I am starting in a village called Nether Stowey. It's not a very long ride because I rode yesterday and I don't want to, tire myself out too much. I'm starting here because this is where Coleridge's house is, and then I'm going to cycle over the Quantocks, which is a small range of hills, down to the coast at Watchet. And along the way, I will tell you the story of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, bits of which I'm sure you probably already know. So that was the delightful Coleridge cottage in Nether Stowey. Samuel Taylor Coleridge was writing about 100 years after Shakespeare. Together with William Wordsworth and William Blake, he formed the sort of three founding writers, really, of the Romantic era. And the Romantic era is really interesting because it really sort of came out of this rejection of the Enlightenment period and industrialisation. Society had gone from not really knowing heaps about how things worked to going through this period of enlightenment where suddenly science, maths, logic, reason were the absolute focuses, and then industrialisation, and everything got very logical, and that's like society had really changed. And the Romantic poets were pushing back against that, and they really, especially the first three, really focused on emotion, feeling, psychology, nature. There's this concept in Romanticism called the sublime, where it's not just nature as in like trees, flowers, animals, things like that. It's much more along the lines of we are connected to nature, and nature is this powerful spiritual part of life, which was in direct contradiction to Age of Enlightenment and industrialisation. And Coleridge in particular is quite interesting because while Wordsworth might be more famous, you might be more familiar with his name, he was very this gentle, landscape-based poet. Wow, it's windy. I mean, he would have dug this, for instance. Coleridge, on the other hand, was much more into the human emotion and deep psychology of people. So his poetry went really deep into the human psyche. It was all about love, like intense love, terror, horror, shame, guilt, all of these big feelings. And he spent 2 years living here in Somerset, in Nether Stowey, in the cottage that I just showed you. And during those 2 years, he went on a walk with his friend, William Wordsworth, and Wordsworth's sister, Dorothy. Balls. I bet the Romantics didn't have to put up with this. My stupid route has wants me to go up this bridle path. Look at this. I can't do that on my bike, I'm gonna get stung to bits. Nope, gotta admit, that was entire rider error. I had been too busy yakking at the camera, had taken the wrong turning, and then my Garmin had rerouted, and I didn't even realise. Okay, so I'm going back on myself to find the real road. So, Coleridge, Wordsworth, and Dorothy Wordsworth took a walk one day in 17 1797, through these very woods, through the Quantock Hills, which is a really beautiful range of hills opposite Wales on the northern coast of Somerset. And on this walk, William Wordsworth, relayed a story that he'd read in a book, a travelogue, of a sailor who had shot an albatross and bad things happened. And this planted the seed for what would become Coleridge's incredible epic poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Okay, so slight problem in that I made this route very quickly this morning without any plan at all. And it turns out that Commute has decided to take me up an basically a mountain biking route. And there isn't another way. And I don't have, it's mid-afternoon because I've had to start this really late. I can't, there's no way I can do that route on this bike or with this time scale. I'm gonna have to take the A road all the way, which is gonna suck. It's gonna suck. You know what? Screw this. 7 kilometers in, and I'm basically have to go back to almost the beginning to get back on the A road. I'm just not going to do it. This is ridiculous. I really thought, I didn't look at the map, because Komoot just creates a route. You put start point and end point and it just creates a route in between. And because the cycling drop down, the cycling category in Komoot, it can take you off-road. Not mountain biking, but it can take you off-road. But it doesn't necessarily know the nuances of that. I didn't even look, I just didn't have time. I'm up here because I was dropping my partner off at a golf course because he's playing with his friend today. And I just thought it's a good opportunity. We don't come up here often. Good opportunity to come and cycle somewhere new, even off the back of yesterday's ride. I planned the route so badly, just so badly. I just didn't look, and it turns out it's a almost vert, really rubbly path over multiple kilometers. I would have to push my bike up the whole thing, which would take me a significant amount of time. And then I know the downhill on the other side because I've done it on my mountain bike, and it is not something I can really do on this bike. It's a gravel bike, but I don't have the skills for it, and it's really loose rubble, really big chunky rocks. And then I'll go down to watch it, and then the only way back is the same way back, apart from the A road. And the reason I don't want to cycle on the A road is because it's 60 miles an hour and it's bendy, so cars can't overtake you very well as a cyclist. Some of them try, in fact a lot of them try, and they pass me, I can feel the turbulence. They pass me 6 in, it's like I could touch the car, and this happens a lot. And also the cars that don't try because it's too dangerous, obviously then they're just stuck behind a cyclist for potentially quite a long time. I can't just keep pulling over because the road is so busy, so I just wouldn't get anywhere. And it's just not a good A road. So I'm so annoyed. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So instead, I'm going to take you to watch it in my tiny Micra. I'm going to cycle back down along the A road, which is still another 5 kilometers back to the car. I'm going to cycle back down to Netherstowe. Then I will take you to watch it. And we'll go on a romantic poet adventure. And there'll be a bike in the back of the car, so it's still cycling themed, right? Feel free to drop off the video at this point, but I'm going to make it really good. And I could ride all the way over there on the A road and all the way back on the A. There's literally one road there. But it would be a crappy ride. I wouldn't be able to film it because it would be too dangerous. And I wouldn't enjoy it. The car drivers wouldn't enjoy it. I want to stay alive. And you hopefully want to keep watching my videos, so you want me to stay alive too. Now let's go make my university lecturers proud and talk about Coleridge. I've done 12 kilometers in 51 minutes. With 170 meters of elevation. So it's not nothing. Okay, so I got changed in the delightful Netherstowe public toilets. Love that. Bike's in the car. Let's go to watch it. The ice was here, the ice was there, the ice was all around. It cracked and growled and roared and howled, like noises in a swound. Coleridge stood here and looked across to the harbour, and that was his inspiration. At length did cross an albatross, thro' the fog it came. As if it had been a Christian soul, we hailed it in God's name. It ate the food it ne'er had ate, and round it flew. The ice did split with a thunder fit, the helmsman steered us through. You know you've got a good harbour when there's poetry painted onto the wall. God save thee, ancient mariner, from the fiends that plague thee thus. Why lookest thou so? With my crossbow I shot the albatross. This is pretty cool. I've never walked out here before. So the actual Rime of the Ancient Mariner is a pretty classic seafaring tale of doom and gloom. There's a wedding guest on their way to a wedding. They get stopped by this crusty old guy, and the guy is very determined to tell them the story. And he turns out to be the Ancient Mariner. He was a captain on a ship that got stuck in the ice, and an albatross shows up, and the ice suddenly melts away and the ship is free to move again. Now, and the albatross carries on flying with them. Now, instead of, enjoying the presence of this massive seabirds, by the way, that go for years without ever, landing on solid land. They're really incredible. They're proper ocean-going birds. Instead of just being grateful, like the crew is, the captain decides to shoot the albatross with a crossbow and kill it. Now, because the sailors are sensible, they are livid about this. They have no idea why the captain's done it. They can't believe it. Suddenly, the wind dies, the mists come in, and it all goes tits. In order to punish the captain, the crew hang the albatross around the captain's neck, and he must basically wear it as penance. And this is why you may have heard the term an albatross around the neck, or just an albatross in general as a bad omen, like someone has got a big burden on them, and this is because of this poem. This is the albatross. So the captain has to wear this albatross around his neck. They're becalmed, they're in huge amounts of trouble, and it's all going badly. Then some kind of ghost ship rocks up, and the kind of entities on it decide whether the people on the ship are going to die or if they're going to have some kind of living death, zombies from the 1700s. The 200 strong crew of men, they all die. They just die like that. They drop dead. But when they die, they fix the captain with cursed eyes. The captain is not so lucky, so he gets cursed with this living death, and he still has this dead albatross around his neck, but now he's got all of his dead crewmen around his feet as well. They also don't rot, so these crewmen are still as if they were alive, but they're dead, and they're all staring at him with these cursed eyes. It sounds pretty much like a nightmare, which was very on brand for Coleridge. Traumatizing, deep horror, this shame and guilt, and all of these really complex feelings are really classic of Coleridge's work. So the captain's having a really bad time, it's all terrible, and then he sees these beautiful water snakes swimming in the water, and he recognizes them as beautiful. And this is a really important moment in the sublime aspect of romantic poetry, because it shows that instead of just seeing nature as this thing that he could kill, like he did with the albatross, now he can appreciate its beauty. So, in appreciating the beauty of the water snakes, which maybe most of us would actually fear the snakes and prefer the albatross, but whatever. The albatross suddenly breaks, its carcass breaks free from his neck, and it sinks into the water and it goes away. He's free from the albatross, but he still has to roam the earth in this kind of living dead state, where he must tell people about this cautionary tale, basically. Sadly, due to an illness and chronic pain, Coleridge was addicted to opium, which actually kind of explains a lot of his dreamlike, quite unhinged poetry. But there's something so deeply visceral about the Rime of the Ancient Mariner that it has become this extraordinary epic poem that most of us probably have heard of in some way or another. Even if you've never heard of the poem itself, you might have heard the sentence, "Water, water everywhere and not a drop to drink." Well, that is from the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and it was part of the section of the poem where they're becalmed and they're starving, they don't have any water, but yet they're surrounded by seawater, which they obviously can't drink. Water, water everywhere, and all the boards did shrink. Water, water everywhere, not any drop to drink. If you haven't heard of Water, Water Everywhere, Not a Drop to Drink, you still probably have heard of the Albatross, and if you haven't, it's time to listen to the Taylor Swift song. Albatross is just, I don't know how much this goes outside of the UK, but having an albatross is a bad omen, in a sense, because of this poem, but it actually predates this poem, because sailors, we're a superstitious bunch, and when I sailed across the Atlantic, I found out why. When you are out in the middle of the ocean, like literally there are thousands of miles between you and the nearest piece of land, everything gets very weird. And it was just myself and my ex-boyfriend, my boyfriend at the time, on our boat sailing across the Atlantic. When you're on watch, you start hallucinating all the time. Like, I always thought I saw stuff in the waves and the sky that wasn't there, because there's just nothing to see. It's just flat water, not flat, but you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing out there. And so there are all sorts of superstitions because you don't want to be becalmed. So that's when there's no wind at all. And, you know, it's quite dangerous for the boat actually sometimes, because if there's rolling swell, then the sails start slapping. So you have to bring them down. And then the motion of the boat is really horrible in the sea because there's no wind to keep it straight. Obviously, like, I didn't have an engine that could have got us anywhere, so we needed wind to sail anywhere, especially in those days. If you don't have any wind for a long time, that's it. Like, you run out of food, you run out of water, and you die. So there's a huge amounts of superstitions in the sailing community, like, that date back hundreds, probably thousands of years, to keep themselves safe. Like, this really helps psychologically to keep them safe. And this concept of the albatross, either as a harbinger of storms, because albatross live in the south, so there are quite a lot of storms in the Southern Ocean, and down that way it's much stormier area than it is, say, in the tropics or anything like that, from an ocean point of view. So they're kind of the harbinger of storms, but also because they were these big, solid, beautiful birds, they also were, you know, sailors wanted to look after them, they wanted to follow them, they thought that they would bring them to safer waters. So the albatross itself, the concept of it being an omen for sailors, massively predates Coleridge's poem, but his poem really doubled down and made them super famous. This didn't quite turn into the epic poem, epic ride that I was hoping, but I hope you still learn a little bit about Coleridge and romantic poets and where the albatross around your neck comes from. Day after day, day after day, we stuck nor breath nor motion, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean.